Good morning. Today we're going to be building a side table. It's a small table, 20 inches square on the top and 24 inches tall. It's designed to fit with the Oxford series of furniture that we'll build here on this channel. It'll fit with our Adirondack chair and some of the other tables we're going to make this season. I think you're going to enjoy this project. It's a simple project. You can do it in a day or two. It doesn't take a lot of material. All it takes is a couple of 8-foot long 2x8s and a wooden dowel, half-inch wooden dowel. I'll give you the plans to this as we go along so you'll see exactly what the dimensions are on each part. And it's going to be our first chance to take a look at a few key elements in how we build furniture. As we go along, we're going to be talking about how to make the boards flat and true. We're going to be talking about proper finishing technique, and we're going to be talking about how to make proper joints on wood. We have a lot to cover today, so let's get started.
You won't find any miter joints in the Oxford series of furniture. We use only butt joints. I posted a small video out there that explains why we use butt joints and not miter joints. You might want to go take a look at it.
Take a look at the wood that I bought. It's not very good. It's not straight, and it's got a lot of knot holes and defects in it. You can do better than this. I could have done better than this, but I picked these boards on purpose because they've got some defects that we'll be fixing as we go along, and you'll see how to fix some really bad ones. All the components in this project are 1 inch thick, so we'll need to do some thickness planing. Now before cutting, I recommend you plane both the boards that you've bought to 1 1/4 inch thick, taking 1/8 inch off each face. That will clean the surfaces of both boards and save us some time later. It won't straighten the boards, it won't flatten the boards, but it will get the surfaces clean so we can work with them more easily. Here's a cut layout to rough cut all the components and the shop drawings that we will use later to do the finish cuts. I recommend you pause the video and make screenshots of all of these if you want to save the drawings.
Using the planed 1 1/4 inch boards, label all the parts, then make all these cuts.
If you follow the cut layout, you now have all these parts. It's now time to flatten all those boards. I'm going to be using the flattening sled. I'm going to be using the thickness planer. There's another whole video out there on how I go about doing that. I recommend you watch it. This particular sled is 4 feet long, and that allows me to mount multiple pieces to it at one time. Then I can run all of those multiple pieces through the thickness planer at the same time. With all the work pieces glued to the sled, we can now take this to the planer and make these surfaces flat.
Once the top side is flat, simply remove the board from the sled, clean off any of the excess glue that's left behind on the workpiece, and feed it through the planer with the unfinished side up. This will make the two faces parallel to one another, and you can now take it down to whatever thickness you want it to be.
Now that we have all of our parts flat and planed to the 1 inch thickness, we need to put one good straight edge on every part. We need that edge to be perfectly straight, and we need it to be square with the face of the board. I do that on the table saw. You may have a jointer or some other tool you like to do that with. Now that we've established a clean edge on every part, we'll use that edge as a reference to come back and rip every part to its final width, and then we'll cut everything to its final length. When ripping to width, add 1/8 inch to the width. For example, the leg is 2 1/2 inches wide. Add 1/8 inch and rip it to 2 5/8. We'll use the planer later to get everything to its finished width. First, plane one clean edge on each piece. Then plane the other edge and continue planing until all the pieces are at the desired width. If all the pieces are the same width, we can do the edge planing on many pieces at one time.
At the table saw, square one end of every board and double check to be sure.
Have a look at the drawing for the leg. We're going to make 3 pilot holes, each one 1/8 of an inch. We're only going to make one leg right now, and we'll use it as a pattern for the others. So for everything that follows, just do this for one leg. We made the rough cut longer than we actually needed. So now all we have to do is locate the approximate middle and put a mark there. Mark the ends of the board at 12 1/8 inches from the middle. Using the end marks as a center point, draw the radius at the end of each leg. Then drill a 1/8 inch pilot hole at each of the 3 marks. This leg is now the pattern that we'll use for the other 3 legs. Clamp the pattern at both ends to one of the rough cut legs. Using the pattern as a guide, drill the center hole in one of the legs. Insert another drill bit into that hole. It will act as an index pin to keep the 2 parts aligned. Remove the clamp at one end and drill that 1/8 inch hole into the rough cut board. Insert a drill bit into that hole. Finally, drill the hole in the other end. Repeat all these steps for every leg. At the bandsaw, cut all the radius ends of the legs. Then take them to the sander to clean them up. At the drill press, enlarge the center hole to 1/2 inch. Then at one end, enlarge the 1/8 inch hole to 5/16 inch. Finally, do the same thing for the other 3 legs. Sand them and put them away. You're done with the legs for now. Now that we have all the boards for the top sized in width and length, we need to make them all uniform in thickness. They're all about 1 inch thick, but they're not exactly, so we need to get them all exactly the same thickness. Take them to the planer, take a couple of small passes, and get them down to where they need to be so that they're all the same. It doesn't matter that they're not exactly 1 inch anymore. We had plenty of material to work with. Just get them all the same thickness. We need one more detail. Looking at the drawing, you can see that the top edges of all the top parts are chamfered 1/8 of an inch all the way around. So set up your router table. You can even do this on a table saw, but make that 1/8 inch chamfer all the way around the top edges of all the top boards. It doesn't show on the drawings, but it's a matter of personal preference for me. I also chamfer all the edges of all 4 legs, and I chamfer the bottom outside edge of all the skirt boards.
It's time to assemble the skirt. The 2 short boards butt into the 2 long boards with 1/8 inch of the long board standing proud. The parts are joined with a single pocket screw in each end. Drill the pockets in the end of the short boards, then attach them to the long boards with the pocket screws. The skirt will be attached to the tabletop with pocket screws, so while you're at it, put 2 pocket holes in each of the long boards for that attachment. The tabletop is ready to be assembled. I've placed it upside down so you can see a couple of construction details. We're using 2 pocket hole screws in the end of each of the field boards to attach them to the long boards. The other thing that we're doing is to maintain the proper spacing of 1/4 of an inch between the boards. I'm using this small nut. This is a 5/16 nut. It just happens to be exactly 1/4 of an inch thick. So I put 2 nuts in between each field board, and I end up with the perfect spacing to give me the proper width, and everything is now ready to assemble.
A few pocket hole screws and the top is assembled. With the tabletop fully assembled, we can now attach the skirt to it. We'll use 4 pocket hole screws to do that. The legs are attached to the tabletop using 4 5/16" carriage bolts. You'll also need a flat washer, a lock washer, and a nut to secure the leg. The legs are attached in the middle using a 1/2" dowel that's 16 inches long. I actually cut this one 1/8 of an inch short, and I'll show you why in just a moment. Next, I sanded a slight taper on each end of the dowel. This is just to help insert the dowel in the leg hole. Using large pliers with serrated jaws, the first 2 inches of each end of the dowel is textured. The dowel fits into the hole in the leg very tightly. If we don't crimp the ends, then the glue will be wiped off as the dowel is inserted. Put some glue on one end of that dowel and drive the dowel into the leg hole using a soft mallet. Don't drive the dowel all the way through the leg. There should be a 1/16" recess when you're done. Now, before the glue dries, get 2 of those carriage bolts and put these 2 legs in place. Don't insert the carriage bolts all the way in. We'll want to take them out later, and this makes it easier to get paint under them when you paint. And don't forget that spacer block that we made earlier. Now let's attach the other 2 legs. Put some glue on the end of that dowel. Push the inside leg on. Then push the outside leg on. And insert the carriage bolts. I put a small screw in both ends of the dowel. They act as wedges to enlarge the dowel and make the fit tighter. Then I use my trusted Bondo to fill the recess. I'm sure you will agree, this is a good-looking side table. I'll apply 2 coats of white paint and call it done. Care for this table properly and it will last for many years. Thanks for watching. I hope you'll join us again on the next episode of the Oxford Woodworker.